Alright, move to combat. I'm gonna swing you with all 7 of my 1/1s and just win the game.
Wait, how are you gonna do that? I'm at 20 life.
Well, I enchanted you with Grievous Wound, so that means each time you take damage, you lose half your life. So you're gonna go from 20 to 10.
That's not how that works. When a player is dealt combat damage, it's dealt in all one big chunk. Well, I mean, except for first and double strike.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah, no, it's in the rules for the card.
Oh, I guess I can't argue with the rules.
Wait, shouldn't you have known this? Aren't you doing a video on damage?
Crap!
Oh, by the way, they're changing how combat damage works in Foundations.
Bienvenue, Magic players. I'm Insignios, and today I want to talk about battles, burn spells, and damage as a whole. In a game of Modern over a month ago, my opponent tried to Unholy Heat one of their battles because they thought battles came with a rules change where everything that could damage a planeswalker can damage battles. This is not true in the slightest. Only spells and abilities that specifically mention battles, or say any target, can damage them. Unfortunately, I was also curious about why they wouldn't make this rules change, so after going down another rabbit hole, I came to the conclusion that WotC just doesn't want a repeat of what happened last time. And that's it for the video. I want you to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. Huh? Oh, you actually want to hear about it last time? Oh, sweet. I never thought I'd actually get this far. Well, when the game came out in 1993, the only things that could take damage were creatures, players, and the backside of your cards as you played them on the pavement. Here's an example of back in the day. Don't worry, it's not my Black Lotus, it's my dad's. See? While most damage was done by creatures via combat, there were plenty of cards that dealt direct damage to players, creatures, or even both. There are also abilities that cause loss of life, which is not the same as damage, but damage does count as loss of life. It's not that confusing.
You sure about that? In Revised Edition, a player only loses if their life points are below 1 at the start or end of an attack, or at the end of a phase. Not at the end of a batch, not at the end of the step, at the end of a phase. A player can go below 0 life during their main phase, and then cast a spell to save themselves, even if it's a sorcery or enchantment, because again, it's during their main phase. This was thankfully changed in 6th edition to loses as they hit 0.
One of the most common ways of losing life was mana burn, in which a player would lose life whenever unspent mana would empty from their mana pool as phases and steps end. But this was taken out of the game in 2009's Core Set 2010. That's right, this game had mana burn for 16 years. It's why Braid of Fire exists. That's not even the weirdest thing. Did you know that combat damage used to use the stack? Yes, it did.
And by on the stack, we don't mean this creature deals its damage, then this creature, and then so on. No, that's just for first strike. What damage on the stack means is that once all the attackers and blockers are declared, you then assign combat damage, but don't deal it yet because now there's another chance to react before combat damage is dealt. Meaning that even if a creature in combat leaves play, its combat damage will still be dealt. Here's an example. I attack with my Hill Giant and you block with your 2 Grey Ogres. Never heard of those cards? Consider yourself lucky. Next, we put damage on the stack. I assign 3 damage to one of your ogres, you assign 4 damage to my Hill Giant. We now have an additional opportunity to play instants and abilities. You play Unsummon, returning to your hand the ogre I assigned that damage to. The ogre on board lives, the other ogre is in your hand, and my giant dies from 4 damage.
To keep things short, Mog Fanatic could block a creature, it is now assigned as a blocker and will deal 1 damage to the blocked creature. And then you could sacrifice it to ping something for 1 damage and still deal the 1 combat damage. Thankfully, this was removed alongside Mana Burn. And replaced it with Blocker Assignment Order. Bienvenue, Magic players, I'm Future Insignios, here to talk to you about how they're about to change how combat damage is dealt between creatures, right as I was about to upload this video. I'm not bitter at all. What we've had since Core Set 2010 and what is going away with Foundations is known as Blocker Assignment Order. Essentially, the attacking player gets to decide which blocking creatures get hit by your attacking creature first. To go a bit more in depth, I'm going to paraphrase Matt Tabak's explanation because I do not feel like writing any more script. Let's say you're attacking with a 5/5 and I'm blocking with a 3/3 and a 4/4. You get to decide the order in which your creature deals damage to both of my creatures. Let's say you want to deal 3 damage to the 3/3 and 2 damage to the 4/4. Okay, cool. The order has been set. You first deal 3 damage to the 3/3, then 2 damage to my 4/4. Seems simple enough, right? Wrong. Damage assignment order, or was it blocker assignment order? Either way, it was meant to mimic damage on the stack. The way they've done it is by allowing the blocking player one last chance to interact after the attacker decides the order, but before the damage is actually dealt. meaning that once I know which creature will die first, I can use something like Giant Growth to pump it up, making it my 3/3 into a 6/6, completely blocking your 5/5 and saving my 4/4. You utter fool. How did you not know this simple part of the game? Well, why didn't I just only block with a 3/3 if I had Giant Growth in my hand? Well, that's because in 2024's Foundation, it is changed to if a creature is facing multiple opposing creatures in combat, the creature's combat damage is assigned and dealt as its controller desires during the combat damage step. Other players won't necessarily know what's going to happen. Okay, that is a bit wordy, so let's do another example. So say you're attacking with the 5/5 over the 3/3 and the 4/4. You attack, I double block, blockers are declared. It's our last opportunity to do anything before combat damage is dealt. I have the Giant Growth in my hand to save a creature, but I don't necessarily know which creature I'm able to save. We'll say I still want to save my 3/3 and pump it up into a 6/6. Cool, now we move on to combat damage. You're able to deal all 5 of that damage to my 4/4. I wasn't able to save it with my Giant Growth because you got to assign the combat damage ahead of time. Is this really going to upend the game? To be honest, I don't really know because I still double blocked with my 3/3 and my 4/4 against your 5/5 with the Giant Growth in hand, so it's not really the most intuitive strategy. But, I don't know, who knows? You might have some sort of like sweeper in your hand. At the very least, damage doubling effects become so much better because you can assign 1 damage there, 1 damage there, the damage is doubled, you took out both things. Before, you would have to assign enough damage to go over it, and then the damage would be doubled. And this is just so much better. Right, damage battles, right. In 2008, Lorwyn gave us Planeswalker cards, a new type of permanent card that can activate an ability once per turn by adding or removing loyalty counters. These counters doubled as the Planeswalker's hit points, as when they hit 0, they blow up. Alongside their introduction came 2 changes to the rules to let players damage them. Number 1, players can have their creatures attack an opponent's Planeswalker as if it were a player. Number 2, the controller of a source of non-combat damage that is dealt to a player may have that damage be redirected to a Planeswalker the receiving player controls. You know what, I take it back, this game is confusing. Essentially, if you wanted to bolt their Jace, you had to specifically target your opponent and say, I redirect the damage. Why? Well, WotC wanted Planeswalkers to be flavorful since, in the game's lore, players are Planeswalkers. So they wanted to feel like you've called upon another player to join your side. Thus, everything that could damage a player can now damage a Planeswalker, whether it be through Beast or Bolt. The alternative to this rule would have been to errata hundreds of cards to add or Planeswalker, and that would have been confusing in an age before smartphones unless they reprinted every single card affected. But this new rule did have some issues. Firstly, it meant Leyline of Sanctity made you and your walkers bolt-proof. Secondly, it was all non-combat damage. This included spells like Bolt and Lava Spike, but also abilities like the +1 of Chandra Torch of Defiance and Necrozar the Mindrazor. And finally, since this was a change to the game's rules and not to any cards, it never appeared on any cards, thus a lot of new players, myself included, didn't know you could do this. And the game was like this for the next 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. But then when 2018 rolls around, everyone has the internet in their pocket, and WotC thinks, we can just errata cards and tell people to go to Gatherer. And that's pretty much what they did with Dominaria. Cards that said damage to target player would be changed to player or planeswalker. Cards that were target creature or player will be changed to any target. And effects that didn't target anything wouldn't change. Meaning Necrozar could no longer damage planeswalkers, pushing him down to just an A-tier commander. So be sure to check Gatherer to see if your spells can hit planeswalkers. Aside from tidying up the rules, this also added new design space for cards that said damage to target creature or planeswalker, like Unholy Heat. But I hear you yearning from your seat to ask me, they have Gatherer now, why not make the change for battles? Making new rules is a balancing act that could have drastic consequences if not done with care. When it comes to battles, if they errata every card that could hit creatures or planeswalkers, then they'd have to do that going forward for all of them, and Rosewater already confirmed that battles aren't going to be back for a while. Likely because they wanted to see how the community at large responded to the new card type before shoving it down our throats, shoving it down our throats, shoving it down our throats. And if we won't be seeing battles for a while, that's just going to take up text space on all sorts of cards. We already have incredibly long cards like Omnath Locus of Creation. If he had to mention battles, the text would be even small. That's not the right Omnath. Close, but no. No, don't revert the first change. Oh, come on! But could you imagine if Unholy Heat could target battles? A lot of them might actually see play in Modern. emphasis on might. But considering that it is a new card type, it would work well in a Delirium-focused deck, maybe with a Tarmogoyf, I'm not sure. But even if you could target them with Unholy Heat, most of the time you would rather target your opponent's stuff. I feel that the way they've introduced battles already is pretty perfect. March of the Machine is the only set with battles, so it's good to keep it confined to just that set instead of every single set, past and future. Also, any target burn is just better, and if you're not playing Lightning Bolt in Modern, then your deck is clearly suboptimal. Well, that statement aged like milk. The next one of these history videos is either going to be on face down permanents or transforming permanents, so let me know which one you'd rather see in the comments below.